Hello YouTubers, this is SNES back again with another video. Recently I did a video entitled Video Game Homebrew Report Number 1. Now in that video I went through a number of games for several different systems, broken down by system. I mentioned in that video that of the games mentioned I had ordered or pre-ordered 7 of them, but I wouldn't say which 7 I had ordered or pre-ordered. I said that I would wait until I showed them. However, if you were paying close attention to that video, there were a number of hints. Subliminal though they were still hints. Now, in the section devoted to games for the Sega Master System, I did make a slight error, an error of omission. But it didn't have to do with the substance of what I was talking about, really. It was an offhand remark that I made. Offhanded remark. It was a remark that I made about some reproductions of Sega Master System game prototypes for games, obviously, that were not released. I mentioned 3 that I have. I have one called Hook, which was going to be published by Sony and which was released by Sony for the NES, but the SMS version was canceled. And I mentioned that I have Pat Riley Basketball, and I mentioned that I have a game that was developed and was going to be published by Sega themselves, featuring everyone's favorite Sega mascot, Sonic the Hedgehog. It was an educational title entitled Sonic EduSoft. So I have those 3. But there's a 4th one that I have, and I totally forgot about it, and I don't know why, because it's a good game from a good developer. And that is Dino Basher, starring Big Nose the Caveman. So, sorry, Codemasters fans, I do have that one. I just somehow forgot it that I have it. Don't know why, but anyway. Okay, for those of you who have been watching my channel for any length of time, you know 2 things. Well, you probably know more than that. But anyway, I'm a big fan of the Sega Master System, and I'm a big fan of Homebrews. And for a long time, I've been trying to find a way to converge those 2 so that they meet, so that we have Homebrews for the Sega Master System on actual Sega Master System cartridges. And recently I rejoined SMS Power, which is free, and I hope I didn't make too much of a pest of myself, but I was kind of poking around trying to see if there was any way to get any of the Homebrews for the Master System that are up on that site in cartridge form. Every year SMS Power has a homebrew contest, and so the games that have come out that were, part of those contests, and they still have them, are up there for downloading and to be played on emulators. However, I wanted them on cartridge badly. I finally found someone who was selling their games that they had developed for the SMS Power contest that were being offered by them in cartridge form. Now, while the original entries on some games were somewhat buggy, not saying these games in particular, but some of the games, these games have been totally debugged and improved in other ways as well. And what's also really cool about them is that no games were harmed in the making of these games. Everything is brand new except for the cartridge shell. Everything inside the cartridge is brand new. Case is brand new. Everything, artwork, brand new. Manual, the whole 9 yards. This is Bread and Butter, developed by a member of SMS Power who goes by the name of Dragon Feet. Now I'm going to put contact links for him down in the description box, as well as play videos that he did himself on YouTube. Now, while this is a game for the Master System, it is not a licensed game for the Master System. This is for 1 or 2 players. Screenshot. Now he did tell me that he uses these universal cases, and I didn't put 2 and 2 together right away, but these are the same cases that the NES dump uses for their NES releases. The only thing is, an NES cartridge will not fit in there without removing a lot of these plastic bits. So they don't stay in there that securely. But Master System cartridges stay in there quite nicely. So go figure. A universal case that can handle a Master System cartridge, but not an NES cartridge, at least without damaging the case in some way. Manual. Which is rather thin, but it gets everything across that you need to have put across so that you can play the game. Dragon feet. Like I said, I believe I'll put the link down there. Special thanks. Only first names are used to protect the innocent. Testers. Some of you may not believe this, but this game was tested before it was put onto cartridge. By Matt, Ann, Paul, Jason, and Joey. Now, some of you no doubt want to see what this cartridge looks like. Sorry, I couldn't resist. I know that's a rather plain looking label, but I don't have a problem with it. It gets the job done, and it no doubt helped keep the cost down, and the price is very reasonable. So what I have here is a decent homebrew for the Master System at a reasonable price on an actual cartridge, complete in case. Total cost $30. Now that is a flat rate price. It includes shipping, at least if you live in the lower 48 states. I don't know what it is otherwise, but I do know that he ships outside of the US. I already showed the back. Why am I doing that again? Okay. This is from the same developer, Dragon Feet. That's not his real name. Porkpolis. And I was just sure I was going to missay that when it came time to say it, but I didn't. Okay, I don't know about you, but this autofocus is driving me nuts. But I've tried turning it off and it's worse, so. Usually if I push all the way in, there we go. I think if he ever does a sequel, he could call it Porkpolis 2, City of Pigs. Manual. This one can be played with either the control pad or the light phaser. I like the light phaser control section. Point gun at target. Pull the trigger. Repeat. Sounds like shampoo instructions. Special thanks to everyone at SMS Power for their excellent technical documentation of the Master System. Also, thanks to everyone who has purchased a Homebrew cartridge for me over the last 3 years. I've made over 250 NES and SMS carts, and I really don't plan on stopping, and good thing too. I finally found someone putting games on cartridge, although, as I mentioned in the Homebrew report video that I did already, there is another one that was released on cartridge called Digger Chan that I really want, but it's really not available anymore in cartridge form. Now, next up, there was a subliminal hint about this one, because the photo of this I took off of Super Fighter Team's website, and I used that for the thumbnail image for that video. This is technically not a homebrew, it's an aftermarket release for a game that was intended to be released in 1994, but after it was completed it was, for some reason, cancelled. Nightmare Busters. Now, from what I understand, Super Fighter Team released this about a year and a half ago, but not complete in box and for $10 less. Some might balk at the price, however, you get a lot for the $70. Now, I already have a lot of releases from Super Fighter Team. I have 3 for the Genesis/Mega Drive, and I have 1 for the Lynx. Typically what they do is they license titles that were either released in Taiwan or somewhere, but very buggy, and they debug them, or they buy the rights to a game that doesn't really need debugging, but was, for whatever reason, not released. This is Super Fighter Team release SF-005. Get a really nice manual, nice and substantive. I probably didn't pronounce that correctly, but I know how I was trying to say it. I need to point out, this game is copyrighted. It is not legal to copy. The copyright was renewed by the original developers and by Super Fighter Team in 2012. I can't go all the way through the manual because it would take forever to do. This is, like I said, a really decent manual. And now that I'm about halfway through, I can stop. Now, everything brand new. Box, manual, that thing. Even the cartridge. Now, this game is compatible with all NTSC and PAL standard Super Nintendos, as well as Super Famicoms. Now, the manual says something about if you have trouble getting the game to boot up properly, say if you're in a PAL country, just turn the system off and turn it back on, and that resets the whole thing. But how many games do you find, new releases for the Super Nintendo, that are compatible with the Famicom, Super Famicom? as I believe I mentioned, total cost for me $78. If you live further away outside of the US, it'll be more. 70 of that was for the price of the game, and the 8 was for shipping. It came in a really nice box and protected the game really well. Okay, still have, well, of the 7 that I ordered or pre-ordered, I have 4 more coming, obviously. Even I could do math. But I went and ordered more after that. On top of which, I think I failed to mention, I'll give another clue here. One of the games that I'm waiting on, and it probably will be the end of the year before I see it, is a game that I am backing financially at Indiegogo. I'll say that. Now, there are probably people out there who already know what I'm talking about. But in any event, and until next time, oh, don't forget, please rate, comment, and subscribe. I make a concerted effort to reply to all comments. Now that I'm able to do that again, I wasn't able to do that for a while for technical reasons, but now I can again, and so I make a concerted effort to reply to comments, so please comment. And until next time, stay awesome. But it didn't have to do with the substance of what I was talking about, really. It was an offhand remark that I made. Offhanded remark. It was a remark that I made about some reproductions of Sega Master System game prototypes for games, obviously, that were not released. I mentioned 3 that I have, and say which 7 I had ordered or pre-ordered. I said that I would wait until I showed them. However, if you were paying close attention to that video, there were a number of hints. Subliminal though they were still hints. Now, in the section devoted to games for the Sega Master System, I did make a slight error, an error of omission. Hello YouTubers, this is SNES back again with another video. Recently I did a video entitled Video Game Homebrew Report number 1. Now, in that video I went through a number of games for several different systems, broken down by system. I mentioned in that video that of the games mentioned, I had ordered or pre-ordered 7 of them. But I wouldn't. It was an educational title entitled Sonic EduSoft. So I have those 3. But there's a 4th one that I have, and I totally forgot about it, and I don't know why, because it's a good game from a good developer. And that is Dino Basher, starring Big Nose the Caveman. So, sorry, Codemasters fans, I do have that. I have one called Hook, which was going to be published by Sony, and which was released by Sony for the NES, but the SMS version was canceled. And I mentioned that I have Pat Riley Basketball. And I mentioned that I have a game that was developed and was going to be published by Sega themselves, featuring everyone's favorite Sega mascot, Sonic the Hedgehog.